That's a good question. Honestly a pretty tough question. I've worked in this field for about 20 years, and frankly, something needs to be done. We've had a lot of advancement of the technologies, and our privacy policies and laws really haven't been updated in generations. So we need to do something. If you look at face recognition overall, it can develop and provide extremely beneficial outcomes. But in the wrong hands, it can produce also some very negative results. The bigger concern, honestly, is for those that don't know what they're doing, it's going to produce gibberish that you have to deal with, and that's all bad. So just looking at that, yeah, we have to develop some type of new policy. Now, whether or not that's at a best practice level, federal legislation, whatnot, the role of government there, that really gets into a political domain, so I'm going to skip that. But what really concerns me more so, and really have to solve before we can even get into some of those extra steps, is that we have a pretty massive fundamental issue that's really impacting all of those options right now. And that's that we're really having two conversations about the topic right now. One by the public and one by people that actually have experience dealing with the data. And the difference between these two conversations is vast, and we need to fix that. The consensus amongst those conversations is that we do want good policy. But good policy means that it's evidence-driven and equitable and outcome-focused. And the problem really right now is that face recognition is pretty darn difficult to understand, and for the most part, we're not really listening to people with experience, and that's been problematic. Like I said, I've been working on this for about 20 years, and it's been confusing to me why that's the case for this technology more so than others. And I've started to come to some realization that honestly, that's how our mind works. If you think back and looking into some psychology studies, we're persuaded, each of us are persuaded most by big fears, surveillance and privacy obviously being fairly big fears. The second thing we're most persuaded by is our sense of our own identity. Well, face recognition hits both of those things. Then you add on top of that confirmation bias. So it's natural for our brains to take in new information and to view that in ways that it supports our existing opinions. That's again, it's a natural tendency. We all do that. And then finally, there's a theory called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where we're most confident in a subject when we know the least about it. Sounds weird, but as we start to learn about something, we think we get it. And then as we learn more about it, we realize, okay, I didn't know all the nuances. And that's really what's happening here with face recognition. All of those things are really combined to produce these issues, because this technology is easy to grasp, but exceptionally difficult and costly to understand in any detail. And really what's happening on that public conversation side is we're ending up with all kinds of weird and wild stuff out there. A couple of examples. We often see summaries of government reports that provide analyses of the report itself. That report warns that analysis would be incorrect, but we're seeing that happen anyway. We're seeing a lot of references of other technologies that are kind of similar to face recognition, but those technologies and their issues being called face recognition, and that really clouding the conversation a lot. And then we're also seeing all kinds of evidence of poorly managed implementations of these technologies by people that aren't expert in it, and people taking the issues that come about because of that and showcasing it as being emblematic of the entire community. And all of these things are happening a lot. When I talk with people in this community, they're actually amazed, because the vast majority of news articles, opinion pieces, and even on some of the policy recommendations that we see includes false information. And that's been very problematic, and it's leading to bad ideas and even worse policy decisions. I mean, to be honest, there are pieces of legislation out there at federal, state, local levels to ban the technology overall, and they're basing that on an incorrect information and misleading assessments. So that's bad. And again, but it's a natural thing that we have to overcome, but it's going to be difficult to overcome that, because this topic, for many of our citizens, has become an emotion-driven issue. And what we've seen throughout history, all kinds of different technologies, when that happens, facts matter less. The emotion overcomes the facts, and that's really what we have to overcome as a federal policy community. It's difficult to do so, but we have to do that. if we're going to be able to craft policies that is actually fair and equitable. And then once we kind of get through all of those stages and everyone really understands the technology properly and what the issues actually are, then you can start to tackle them in the most appropriate manner, whether that being the recommendations or diving in with the legislation as the person asked.